Hey everyone, welcome to Classics You Slept Through. It's been a while, but we are the book podcast that reads and reviews classic books for your listening and entertainment enjoyment. I'm your host, Kyle Davis, along with a girl who may not be from Easttown, but she knows where to get her hoagies and water ice, my sister Mare. How's it going, Mare?
It's good. I have come around to the water ice. I used to call it Italian ice. I was taught better. We call it water ice. We eat water ice down the shore with our hoagies, not subs.
Exactly.
And it's good. It's good.
Very nice.
It's been a long time.
It has, and this is timely because I didn't realize, because I don't have HBO. I just watch on Twitter. But apparently, Mayor of Easttown is ending this week. I think the finale is this week. Have you not been watching it?
I've been watching it. I saw the SNL skit on it, which was hilarious.
I figured this would be your jam. I mean, it's literally you. Well, not literally you, but it's
I heard it's real dark. I heard it's like real dark.
Well, it's about murder and whatever, and she's a cop. I mean, sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I did just watch Army of the Dead, so that's pretty dark. It's a zombie
well, there you
flick.
go. Yeah.
It's like Ocean's 11 meets Dawn of the Dead. You know, like.
Right.
Are you?
I mean, I watched the pitch meeting on it, so that's all I know. I don't have Netflix. You? I did. I watched it. Yeah, I love Pitch Meeting. It's a fantastic series. Anyway.
You guys don't have Netflix anymore.
We don't have Netflix anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Your son told me all about that, and I was confused. He was like, we can't have it because we were using it illegally. I'm like, no, you were just using Nonies. He's like, no, Mom said it was illegal, and we couldn't use it. I'm like, I think maybe she just
See, we're on the
up
and up. Yeah, we're on the up and up. I don't pay for it, so I don't use it. It's all good. I'm not stealing cable from my neighbors.
Yeah.
That's very, very old.
Anyway, it was good. Dawn of the Dead was good, but
yeah?
I haven't watched Mayor of Easttown. It was a little dark, and I need some lightness, so I'm just rewatching Schitt's Creek over and over again.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just enjoying when the show came out a couple of weeks ago, how the whole Twitter sphere suddenly discovered the Delco accent, and it was quite heartwarming to me to see them all like, what are they saying? What are these words? The best I saw was somebody tweeted. Do you follow Blair Erskine? No. Okay. She's a humorist. She started out doing political humor last year and actually got hired as a writer for Jimmy Kimmel recently. She announced.
Cool.
That's very good for her. But she's from Georgia, and so she has an accent, obviously. But she tweeted something along the lines of, I thought that she was the mayor of Easttown. Like, did she get elected? And I was like, yeah, it's the Delco accent for you. Mayor.
In a former life, my ex-husband and his brother, you remember Steve, you know Steve.
Yes, of course.
He had a friend named Jimmy. Yeah, he had a friend named Jimmy, and everybody calls me Mare, M-E-R-E, Mare. And we thought just Jimmy had an accent because he would call me Mayor.
Mayor.
Yeah,
Mayor.
And one day he called me Mayor, and everyone's like, wait a minute. You know her name's Mare, right? Like Meredith. He was like, no, Mayor, like the mayor of the town. No, man.
You see? You've lived that. You have actually lived that. Excellent.
It was awesome. It was awesome. But then he just continued. He was like, that's fine. Just Mayor is
Very
fine.
good. So as you can probably tell, listeners, it's been a while since we have potted, and it's been a while since we've really chatted. I mean, we text every once in a while, but I don't use the telephone, so I don't call. Yeah, so
do you have phone
I'll text you once in a while. But, I don't know about anxiety. I just why should I talk when I have a text right there? I can just send you a text.
Can you call for pizza? Who calls for takeout in your house?
Oh, we order online. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
Right? Come on. Anyway, so here we are. It's been a few weeks. Some technical difficulties we have worked through, but hopefully you saw and got a nice surprise when the second half of Alice in Wonderland popped up in your podcast feeds. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, podcast platform of your choice, etc., etc. We'll do the standard disclaimer at the end, like always, but hopefully you enjoyed our conclusion of Alice in Wonderland, and today we're going to talk about those back half of the chapters. So should we get into it?
Of course. What else were you going to do?
And if you listen to our last discussion, you know I absolutely adore and love and feel that it's one of the more underrated. But the Disney Alice in Wonderland is just one of my absolute favorite movies.
The original cartoon.
The original 1950, what do we say, 54, 56, I forget exactly. But mid-50s cartoon as sort of one of my favorite movies of all time. And as we discussed last time, it's actually sort of a kludging together of elements from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, as well as the next book that we'll be doing, Through the Looking Glass, and What She Found There, I think is the full title. But we start off here in chapter 7 with the tea party, and one of the first things that I was struck with in reading this is really kind of verbatim how they went through in the movie and did the tea party.
The most vivid scene to me was the butter in the watch and dipping it in the...
And then dipping it in, yeah.
Why they're doing the butter? Is it for just to oil the...
It's to fix it. It's to fix it. Yeah. It's how you fix a watch. Are you not a watchmaker? You're not Swiss, so... So at the end of chapter 6, we had just left the Cheshire Cat, and he'd said, go this way or that way. You can go see the Hatter. You can go see the March Hare. And Alice said, I don't want to see somebody who's mad. Let me go see the March Hare. And she walks up and sees this house shaped like a rabbit's head, and that's where we left her. But when she arrives, I'm assuming most people listening have some familiarity with the Disney movie at some point in your life, or some version thereof of Alice. But the long table with the Mad Hatter, the March Hare, and the Dormouse having their tea party. Alice comes upon it, and we begin sort of the wordplay that is the hallmark of this book. They offer her some wine, again, verbatim in the movie, and she says, I don't see any wine, and they shouldn't have offered it then. And they say there's no room at the table, and she says there's plenty of room. And yes,
like 9 or 10 years old.
Yeah,
that's not the point.
I know,
like,
right?
You don't
Alice
have
is
any. You shouldn't have
quite young. I
offered
don't even
it.
have any wine.
I'm a child.
Shouldn't
the
be giving me
50s.
wine.
It's different, right?
It is. Or the 18 whatevers when Lewis Carroll wrote this.
Fair.
But right, so we go through the whole thing. I mean, the chapter has all of the best beats of the movie. We've got, as you mentioned, the buttering of the watch. We've got, dipping it into the teacup. We've got the changing places and moving down because they don't have time. It's always 3 o'clock or whatever, so they can't ever wash dishes, so they have to move down the table. We have the sleepy dormouse that they wake up to. He sings his treacle song, and
What is treacle?
It's like molasses, I think. It's like a sweetener. Yeah, I think it's similar to molasses, or it may actually be molasses. I don't know.
Treacle. Oh, my first Google was like treacle and Alice in Wonderland. Is that
There
what
you go.
meant?
Yes, exactly.
It is Google, I guess.
And is it molasses?
Well, it just wants to give me descriptions of that chapter.
Oh,
So
well,
I
that's
just want,
not helpful.
It looks maybe like, let's see, a thick, sticky, dark syrup made from partly refined sugar.
Yeah, it's basically molasses. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It is molasses.
Or cloying sentimentality or flattery. Enough of this treacle. Let's get back to business, is the example.
That sounds very British usage. Definitely.
Yeah. So like overdone sweetness, flattery.
Right.
Fair.
Which,
Okay.
if you ever had molasses, it is. So, right. So we go through the tea party, and that's kind of that. I mean, I don't have much to say about the tea part. I feel like maybe I'm too close to it, having watched the movie a million times. What else do you say about the tea party? It is the tea party.
I know. I was trying to think. Part of my brain was looking for meaning, and part of my brain was just enjoying what was going on, because I was like, I don't see any deeper meaning, because a lot of the wordplay and the puns in this do have a lot of like double meaning in what they're saying, which we see much more in like the Mock Turtle chapters, which are coming up. Mm-hmm. But this one, it just felt like was fun and nonsensical.
I would tend to agree.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I can think of that it's perhaps lampooning is, a child's perspective of the silliness of adulthood, perhaps.
There are
Because
a lot of
everything they do is wrong. Not wrong, but like they don't quite know how to function. And they're just sort of these silly characters. But yet they are so confident and self-assured of what they're doing. Like Alice, like they can't comprehend that Alice doesn't just instantly comprehend what they're doing. Like, come on, child, don't you see? Of course we have to move down. It's always 3:00 and we can't wash the dishes. And it's always tea time. So we're stuck here. Which seems almost a very British, like, this is what we do. And so, well, why do you do this? Because this is what we do and this is the time to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is kind of adulthood in a nutshell. Like, you have responsibility and it's 3:00 and of course it's time for tea and of course we're going to have tea. And
well, in the movie, isn't there the song "A Very Merry Unbirthday"? Does that?
That's not in the book, is it? Oh, you're right.
Was it supposed to be this chapter? I was wondering, like, does it come later? No,
this is where it is. This is where it falls in the movie. So the concept of the unbirthday present then would be a Disney invention.
All right, so it's not in Through the Looking Glass. Like, she doesn't go visit them again.
No, they're not characters in Through the Looking Glass. Well, we will find out in another few days, I suppose. But the unbirthday, I wonder if that's in Through the Looking Glass. I'm not sure. We will have to put a pin in that.
Because it's so vivid in my memory. A very merry unbirthday to you.
Sure.
Sure. It's one of the vivid scenes from the movie. And then I was waiting. I was like, oh, here it comes. Here comes the unbirthday. But it's not.
It's not. Yeah.
There.
All right. Well, there you go, everyone. We have something to look forward to in Through the Looking Glass. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. Well, then we get to chapter 8, and we go to the famous croquette scene.
Croquet.
Croquet, yes. And we actually get the famous quote, "Do you play croquet?" So we get to the croquet ground, and we come upon the playing cards. 2, 5, and 7 are all painting the roses red. They're painting the roses red. Painting the roses red. Yeah. So, and if you've seen our Instagram, a local shop here in town actually has a display window with some Alice in Wonderland scenes. And these iconic scenes, they have the tea party and they have the playing cards painting the roses red as one of the scenes.
The Please Touch Museum in Philadelphia, which we haven't gone to for a year because it really sounds like you shouldn't during a pandemic. But the Please Touch Museum has a permanent Alice in Wonderland exhibit, which is awesome. It has the tea party. It has a big tree with a Cheshire cat in the tree. You can go through the Queen's Garden with the croquet, and there's the cards overturned, and then there's these varying mirrors that make in a room that makes you feel tall and small, and it's really awesome.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, and you get to go down the rabbit hole, which has this big spinning, like, dizzy spiral thing as you walk through like a dark tunnel with all the pictures of what's in the rabbit hole as she falls down. It's a lot of fun.
Fantastic. And shout out to public domain material that a museum can just crib from and use and don't have to pay for, right? They can just make something like that.
It's awesome.
All right, so then we get into she gets into the garden, sees the gardeners. And then we see this. I would have to look at the movie, which I did. I closed the window. I did have it up. But just a nice thing that I saw, that they had each of the suits of the pack of cards were different. The clubs were the soldiers, and then there were the hearts were the children. So I suppose the king and queen had 10 children. Then the courtiers were the diamonds, and I guess that leaves the spades to be the gardeners, which
makes sense,
right?
Fully, yeah.
So then she meets the queen, we get the first, off with their heads. The gardeners are sentenced. We get Disney added a little silliness where they try to frame Alice, but fortunately the book doesn't. She just notices the gardeners.
Painting the roses.
Right, for painting the roses. Yep. Try to get that out. So then.
Well, eventually at the end of the croquet game, the queen has everybody's going to get beheaded. Like there's
correct.
Nobody's left.
Nobody's
because
left.
all the soldiers have taken everybody into custody, and it's just the queen, Alice, and she sent the Duchess away, and the king.
Right, the Duchess went, which brings up not in the movie. I mean, the Duchess was not in the movie at all. I don't believe.
I don't know.
I'll have to rewatch. We will do a rewatch at the end of this. But I'm 99% certain the Duchess is not involved in the croquet match at all. Because for Alice, so they do. Alice gets in trouble in the movie in the croquet match because of the Cheshire Cat, who does show up,
right,
but isn't quite as mischievous as they drug it out in the Disney movie. Well, then we get into a scene where Alice hangs out with the Duchess, and I think in the book she's at first a little relieved because it's at least someone she's met before. So it's
and she's
other than the
nicer.
White Rabbit, other than the White Rabbit, this is the first like repeat character. I guess she's run into the Cheshire Cat, but she doesn't run into him until again later. But I guess the Duchess is really she does meet the White Rabbit, but they don't really interact a ton. But as far as characters she has like interacted extensively with, the Duchess would be the one basically.
Right.
That she has a repeat
there's
here.
No pepper involved. She thinks maybe it's the
correct.
pepper that makes the Duchess so unpleasant.
Correct.
She seems rather pleasant, except for the fact that her pointy little chin is digging into Alice's shoulder, which makes me think: is Alice normal size right now, and the Duchess is just extra tiny, or is Alice still like an in-between size? Because she's just a child. How small is this Duchess?
Right. She's at least, a head taller than Alice because her chin is right on Alice's shoulder level.
Right.
So she's
head shorter than Alice.
I was thinking head taller because when her chin would have to come into. Maybe they're about the same size. I don't know.
So I was imagining her being so short that her head just fit right on Alice's shoulder, but you're imagining her so tall that she ducks down.
She ducks down. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. I think she is generally depicted as being short and squatty.
Yeah.
In the pictures I've seen, so.
She's all about morals. Everything has a moral.
Correct. Everything has a moral. Even to the point where I found it interesting. So she's bringing morals into everything, and they're quite nonsensical. So as most of the language in this book is, but she actually gets to a point where she is at a loss for words and can't come up with a moral, and just sort of tosses it off as there's a moral in there somewhere, I'm sure.
I wonder if that's like a child's recognition of morals, because Vincent had a little Aesop's Fable book, and you read the fable, and at the end it says the moral is this. And while he enjoys the story of, for example, the fox and the crow,
right,
where the fox flatters the crow so she drops her cheese, he just thinks that's a fun story. It does not get the moral whatsoever at the end.
Right.
He's only 4.5, but still, like the nonsensical version of a story with a moral in it is just as means just as much as the Duchess does in her morals that don't relate as anything else. Like, I don't know what Lewis Carroll was trying to say there, other than telling a kid the moral of the story doesn't make much sense to the kid at the time.
I kind of took it as him critiquing adults who are finding the quote-unquote lesson in everything, or the moral, and sort of wryly saying, man, sometimes just enjoy stuff.
Yeah.
Like, everything doesn't have to have a greater lesson for a child. Like, let a kid be a kid, let him just have fun, and just leave it at that. And adults, hey, have some fun yourselves. Like, everything doesn't have to be teaching you something.
I'm finding that as when I'm reading about the right things to do as a parent and creating like a bond with your child and all of this, even though they're in this tough stage, to resist the urge to moralize in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you know, you said don't run, they ran, they fell down, they got hurt, and in the midst of tears and crying, you're like, see, that's why I told you not to run. Is the absolute wrong time to do that,
Right.
apparently.
Right.
The right time to do that is later, when we're calm and we can think about it, because when they're hurt and they're upset, their logical brain, as much of the logical brain that they have, is gone. It's not there for learning a lesson. It's, I'm hurt, I need comfort, I need help. And so you provide the comfort and the help and the, oh, that was, I feel so bad, like that's terrible that you fell, oh, that must have hurt. And then later when they're calm, you can talk about like, oh, remember when you ran and fell? That's why we don't run.
Yes.
And they can go,
Yeah,
oh.
we run into that all the time. Like when they're worked up and redlined, you really can't teach in that moment. Mm-mm. So, you know, we've been trying to build resiliency and understanding and asking for help when you need help and not just trying to do it all yourself, right?
Yeah.
So especially like with schoolwork, because they'll get real worked up. And so sometimes you say, okay, that's enough for today. Give them a hug. And then you find opportunities later. So yesterday, it's Memorial Day weekend, and I'm not a CrossFitter per se, but, I work at a CrossFit gym, CrossFit affiliated gym, and, being in the military, the Memorial Day Murph workout is a big thing that a lot of military bases will do, and obviously CrossFit does. So we had ours yesterday, so we went and did it. And, I've not been doing volume pull-ups like I have in past years, just mostly because my home pull-up bar is in storage, and I just haven't been doing nightly pull-ups like I used to. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to do all 100 pull-ups, right? So I just went ahead and did the...
Yeah, I know that too. I know I'm not going to be able to do all my 100 pull-ups. Oh, whew, my audio peaked on that one. I was
exactly,
excited.
Right. So I just went ahead and, made the decision, look, I'm going to do 50 strict, and then I'll grab a band and I'll go banded for the other 50, right? And so the kids were there to cheer me on, so they got to see me do all the stuff. And again, I'm not a CrossFitter, so I don't do the floppy fish CrossFit pull-ups. I do actual real pull-ups. And so it took me longer, and so I was the last person. Us coaches all did it together in the morning before all the clients showed up. So I was the last coach to finish, and the kids got to see all that, and they got to cheer me on and whatnot. So, but later in the day, I used that as an object lesson to say, look, sometimes you have to ask for help with things. You could be like, they weren't there later when some of the members came in, but a lot of people were just like doing the volume. They obviously physically could not, but they were pushing through, and they were flopping themselves and had bad form. And I'm just like, my personal trainer brain is screaming like, if you can't even do the form properly, you should not have a weighted vest on. You're not, your head is not even coming near even in your floppy fish pull-ups, your head is not even clearing the bar. Like, these are not pull-ups. Anyway, point being, I told the kids, look, you have to have humility in yourself to say, look, I know what I'm capable of and where I need to ask for help. I knew I was not in the right physical shape to even attempt to push through. So I knew here was an area I needed to ask for assistance. So yeah, you have to find those morals and find those lessons and deliver them to children in the right moment. And I think Carol is saying, hey, adults like to do this way too much to the point where all this moralizing comes off as nonsense to the child. Mm-hmm. Like the Duchess is literally looking for a moral in every utterance coming out of either. They can't just have a regular chit-chatty conversation. They're looking for morals in everything. Yeah. So my 2 cents.
100 bullets? 100?
Yeah, I broke them up into 20 sets of 5, but yes.
Okay. I mean, it's still impressive, but not as impressive as doing 100 straight. Just
I don't know if anybody can do 100 straight. I mean, the CrossFitters do them. They do 100 of those things, but 100 straight strict pull-ups would be vastly impressive. If any listeners out there have done 100 straight strict pull-ups, please send us an email, cystpod@gmail.com. I'd love to talk to you about it.
So someone over 25 who listens to our podcast.
No, under
so
25.
jacked.
And under 25 has to send us the email.
Right, but we're assuming if they're going to send us an email about their 100 pull-ups, they're not under 25 because no under 25s have sent us an email.
Only people with old man strength can do that many pull-ups. So you have to reach old man strength level.
Yeah. Dude,
Yeah,
old
exactly.
jacked men at the gym are awesome. Like there was one back in Greencastle.
Well, thank you.
No, I'm talking like a legit old man, like 60, 70, like dad's age and still working. Like there was a guy at the gym where
I'm closer to 60 than 20. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, but you're not 60. You're not.
I will be.
And according to you,
Inshallah.
everyone thinks you're 30. Ooh.
Yeah, I used to be able to do 28. It's too gray now. I gotta up that to the 30s, right?
I'm just trying to keep making sure that I can do 10 push-ups. Somewhere I read, like, if you can touch your toes and do 10 push-ups, you're okay.
You're okay.
Yeah. You're not, like,
suppose you're
quickly
okay.
deteriorating.
Well, once you hit 30, you lose 1% of muscle mass per year. So past age 30, you have to at least add 2% of muscle mass in order to offset the 1% of muscle mass and continue to keep growing. But
How
I
do you
digress.
do that?
You work out.
You just work out.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta do something. You gotta work the muscles to make them grow. All right, so we get to the end of chapter 8, and chapter 8 ends very oddly. The Cheshire Cat shows up, and Alice introduces him as being the one who knows him. It's odd that Wonderland characters have never encountered the Cheshire Cat before, but Alice introduces, and we get into the logical quandary of. The queen sentences him to be beheaded, but he is only a head. So the executioner says, "Look, I didn't sign up for this, man. I've been executing for years, and I know in order to cut someone's head off, there has to be a body attached to it to cut the head off from. I can't do this." And the king says, "Oh, I think you can. He's still got a head.
Yeah.
Anything that has a head can be beheaded." So.
But if you're just a head, then you're not. You
Right.
cut it in half to behead. Like, I don't know. Cut it in half to behead it, to unhead, to make you not a head.
Right. So anyway, Alice says, "You know what? It's the Duchess's cat. Why don't you ask her?" And the queen says, she's in prison. Go get her." So they go get the Duchess, and she takes the cat off, and the cat disappears. Oh, now we get into the moralizing. Sorry, chapter 9 is actually where we talk all the Duchess moralizing. So all that stuff we said about Duchess moralizing, it's actually here in chapter 9. So then...
the Mock Turtle story, which has nothing to do
Right.
with Duchess, but...
Right. Well, it gets weird because then the Duchess... Is it the Duchess that says... or the Queen says... The Queen just says... The Queen says, "Hey, by the way, Alice, have you gone seen the Mock Turtle yet?" Very odd segue. She's like, "No." And so now here we diverge. So, and this is where we were talking before the pod. Do you read the show notes? So we get the Mock Turtle, who is not in the Disney movie. However, the Mock Turtle and the Griffin do exist. They were in a Disney-produced commercial for Jell-O in 1956. Which I linked in last episode's show notes. I will link it again in this episode's show notes. So you can actually see the Disneyfied version of the Mock Turtle and the Griffin talking to Alice about making Jell-O. Or Alice introduces them to Jell-O. I think they may have. I'm gonna research a little more for our wrap-up. But I think there may have been Mock Turtle, because they obviously had the designs fully animated. I mean, I don't think they created them I think there actually was maybe a deleted scene or planned scenes, maybe storyboarded out, cut for the movie, and they removed, probably in the sake of time. Although the movie's not very long. So
I definitely feel like
I've
seen the Mock Turtle and the Griffin in this scene, but I guess in a different kind of production.
Right. There is actually, I believe, let's see...
Also,
so Gene Wilder plays a very creepy Mock Turtle from 1999.
Oh, 99.
Yes. So Gene Wilder in a turtle costume, a turtle with a Gene Wilder head. It's very disturbing looking.
That late, huh?
Yeah.
Huh. All right, hold on. Time.
Are we cutting this portion?
I just have to pee so bad that I'm gonna die.
Oh, okay. All right. So, Twitch viewers, you can just hang out with me while I just sort of sit here, I guess, in silence. Or I could check and see if there actually are any Twitch viewers. I haven't even been keeping up with our twitching here. Let me see. There does not seem to be. So, all right then. I won't worry about it. And we'll just wait for Mare to return. And then we'll snap it back in.
Did you entertain Twitch while I was gone?
There's nobody on.
No. Yeah. Still. Ugh, my audio peaks so bad sometimes.
I know. I don't know what's going on.
I don't either.
Are we going to do another 6 weeks hiatus while you figure that out?
Yeah. All right, I'm back. I'm ready. You ready?
Hang on. Blop, blop, blop. Yes, okay. All right, we snap it back in. All right. Yeah, okay. Oh, wait, what did we just say? What are we just talking about? We were talking about Gene Wilder. Okay. Gene Wilder, Mock Turtle. Okay. Okay, so we're back. Well, we're back. Whatever. All right, I'm going to cut all of this then.
Yeah. Ready?
Okay.
Let's just count down. It's like
Okay.
36 minutes. Ready? 1,
2, 3. So Alice gets directed to the Mock Turtle, and she goes to see him, and his friend the Griffin is there. And they just, this is such a very bizarre chapter and a half, I suppose. It's very punny. Mm-hmm. You know, I realized as you're reading it as an American person, you're realizing some of these puns don't work if you're not British.
right.
You know, because, for example, he's talking about his master turtle at school, who, I mean, we all know turtles are taught by rats, not by other turtles, but anyway, talking about he was a tortoise, and they said, well, why do you call him a tortoise if he was a turtle? And he says, we called him tortoise because he taught us, which, as an American, you're like, okay, I suppose. But if you talk in a British accent, maybe more Cockney, and he says, he's a tortoise because he taught us, and it kind of makes a little more sense.
So much more sense.
It does, right. So some of this is lost on American ears.
I didn't read it in an accent, so...
No, I did not. I read the Mock Turtle as more of he's very slow, and I kind of read him sort of sleepily.
Yeah.
But we get into a lot of wordplay. They aren't exactly pun. I don't know what you would call these, because he starts talking about school subjects, but they're not. I mean, they're sound-alikes. Well, they're sound similars. I don't know. You're the English person.
It's just funny. It's just witty. I think like the arithmetic and uglification and derision and
right.
Like they
addition becomes ambition, subtraction becomes distraction, multiplication becomes uglification, and division becomes derision. So they're not. There's no meaning associated with those four words. They just sort of sound like the subjects.
I wonder. So they're not homophones, but words that sound similar. What's that called?
I mean,
is homonym versus homonym.
They're not. They're like soft rhymes or something. Because ambition, addition, they don't quite rhyme, but you could sort of soft rhyme them in a song.
Yeah.
Subtraction, distraction, that kind of rhymes.
Division,
Uglification,
derision.
multiplication doesn't really. Division, derision works.
Yeah.
And then we go on, we have mystery instead of history. They obviously rhyme. We have drawing instead of drawing.
It's wordplay regardless of the...
It's wordplay,
like
yes.
the actual term. And I thought it was a lot of fun. I liked it.
Yes.
Especially they make poor Alice to seem to be an idiot. She's like, what do you mean uglification? They're like, well, you know beautification, right? She's like, sure.
Right.
I'm like, well, then this is the next one. This is uglification.
So this chapter, they just talk about school, and it's really just, I think, just an excuse to make funny wordplay, to make kids laugh. But I did appreciate right at the end of the chapter, so he's talking about, how many hours a day did you do lessons? And the Mock Turtle says 10 hours the first, 9 the next, and so on. And he says, why did you do that? And he's, well, they're lessons. They lessen from day to day. And she says, oh, okay, well then, the 11th day was off? And he says, yes, of course. And she says, well, what did you do on the 12th day? And they instantly change the subject. Well, that's enough about lessons. Let's move on to games. Yeah, so, even they...
What to say about that?
No, that's good. Let's just move on quickly. So we get to chapter 10, the Lobster Quadrille, where we're talking about games. And these were your chapters, but now we're talking... They start setting up this dance, this complex dance, and we have some songs as well.
Where everyone is partnered, all the animals in the sea except the jellyfish. Once you get the jellyfish out of there, you can finally start the dance.
You don't want to touch those guys.
Partner with a lobster, and you get to throw the lobsters into the sea, and then you swim back out and you get them and you bring them back, and you continue to do this weird little, very slow. She's like, show me a part of it, and it says that the Mock Turtle sang very sadly and slowly. It didn't seem like as fun as it sounded when I was reading it versus when we finally got to it.
Right, and they do it without lobsters because, of course, you can do it without lobsters.
Right, and who has time to just go get the lobsters?
Just do it.
They're at the bottom of the sea. Come on.
Right. So we get more wordplay. We talk about, instead of blacking our boots, we white the shoes because you don't want to, you can't do it in the sea, and your shoes are made of soles and eels, which, of course, are fish. Well, an eel is not a fish, but a sole is a type of fish. And, you can't, fish always go everywhere with a porpoise. Why? Because you can't go anywhere without a porpoise, which I don't know how the British would say it, but I almost think like you need a Brooklyn accent for this one.
Porpoise, a pup. Well, aren't ours...
Porpoise. Yeah, maybe. Hey, Governor, what's a porpoise? What's a porpoise? I guess they dropped the R. I don't know.
Yeah. Apologies.
Whenever I was reading it in my head, it came out like more Brooklyn. Like, hey, what's a porpoise?
Porpoise.
Porpoise.
I, for some reason, reading this whole thing, thought whiting was a bird. I don't know why. Whiting is a fish. And of course that makes more sense. But with their tails and their mouths, and Alice is constantly trying. Alice has learned her lesson here, because remember when she was talking to the mouse about cats, and the mouse was getting upset. And so here she's talking about, like, she keeps herself from saying that she's eaten these things at dinner. Like, she's eaten lobster and she's eaten whiting. And she says, like, I've often seen them at din.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I don't know where
she catches
din
herself.
is. But so Alice has learned a little bit, because she realizes that her perspective on things is not, first of all, appreciated, but also it's incorrect here. Hence
So I think you've hit on something. So we got a little growth in this chapter, right?
Yeah.
So she catches herself, as opposed to in the beginning with the mouse, where she's talking about Dinah the cat and just saying cat over and over and over, right? Well, here she also calls them on it, because when they're talking about going somewhere with a porpoise. Oh man, I can't even say it now. Going somewhere with a porpoise. She calls them on it, and she says, "Don't you mean purpose?" And I think earlier in the book, she may not have been so explicit as like saying, "You guys, come on now. This is what
she would have just allowed herself to be confused."
Right. And the Mock Turtles, I mean what I say. Now, what about you? What have you been up to?
Is this the chapter, one of the chapters she briefly touches on, I'm not the same person that I was yesterday?
Yeah, this is here. Yeah.
Yeah. And they don't talk about it. They just move right on. But it is more of that identity crisis that she's having.
Right.
And it's a recognition of, like, she has changed. And we actually see that happening here.
Right. So she says, they ask her to tell her some of her adventures. And she says, "I could tell you my adventures, beginning from this morning. But it's no use going back to yesterday, because I was a different person then."
Well said, Alice. Sometimes it's no use going back.
Yeah.
Depending on how far.
To quote Kylo Ren, "Let the past die. Kill it if you have to."
Surprised you
Anyway,
quoted Kylo Ren.
I did quote Kylo Ren. So she kind of goes through some of her adventures. But it's interesting because... So Alice began well, I guess this all takes place in a day then. So I was wondering what Wonderland time is, because we never see her sleep or wake up. So this is all in a day, because Alice begins to tell them her adventures from the time she first saw the White Rabbit.
So the time she entered
the rabbit hole,
because this has changed her. She couldn't tell you yesterday prior to entering Wonderland.
Yes, yeah. So there you go. So then she basically explains everything, goes through it. And we get back to lessons, right? So the beginning of the book, there was a lot of talk of her reciting lessons. And so here again, the Griffin tells her to recite "'Tis the voice of the sluggard." And of course, like earlier in the book, their versions of these recitations are different than what Alice has learned. And then we finish the chapter.
She also wrecks it. She confuses it with the lobster quadro. She can't do it right this time. And I think personally, I don't think there's any deeper meaning to that than in your dreams, you can't seem to get things right sometimes.
Correct.
And because
it's all a mismatch.
Yeah, you know that it's wrong and you know what's right, but you can't. Do you ever dream that you're trying to use technology and you just can't? Your phone doesn't work. You can't use the micro. Like, that's one of the ways that you know that you're dreaming, is that you can't use technology. You can't do it. It doesn't work. And it's so frustrating.
Mm-hmm. For me, it's I can't run. Like I physically can't run. Like, I try to run and it's very slow. Those are the frustrating ones.
I've had ones where I can only open one eye and therefore can only turn that direction. And I'm trying to get away, but I can't.
It's almost corkscrewing down the road.
But apparently, I was reading about lucid dreaming, because sometimes I'm so aware that I'm dreaming that I sometimes can change things or wake myself up or tell myself, like, oh, this is just a dream. And I would like to be able to control it. And some people say that you can. So I was reading about it, and it was like a Reddit post, so reading about it.
Deep research there.
Right. But, like, apparently there are things you should do during the day that will become habit that will then be recreated in your dreams, like doing a sleep or awake check with yourself, or doing some, like, turning the lights on and off and on and off and on and off in real life, which then when you do it in your dream, you can do that and then say, I'm actually dreaming because X is happening or not happening. Obviously, I'm an expert right now on lucid dreaming.
I thought it just meant your totem stopped spinning, and that's how you could tell.
But does it? Who knows?
Anyway, so can you consider reading Reddit as doing peer-reviewed research, because literally your peers are reviewing what you wrote?
Although, are they peers? You never know how.
No,
I
you never
assume
know.
everyone on Reddit is like 25 years old and attractive, and that is not true.
No, I see. I assume the opposite, that they're all overseas men and they're old and they're
Old
gnarly.
overseas men.
For some reason that's how I picture the average.
Like they just live in a different country, or they're sailors.
Yes.
Do you imagine?
No, they're sailors. Oh man, Brandy, you're such a fine girl. All right, so we get into chapter 11. Who stole the tarts? Now this is divergent from the movie, because here Alice becomes a witness in the trial of the Knave of Hearts, whereas in our Disney version, which I love, Alice herself is on trial not for stealing tarts, but for coaxing the queen into a game of croquet, which is
makes
very
me think
interesting.
sometime that's like a not licentious. That's not the right word. Like a
Euphemism for something? Like, oh, we were just playing croquet.
It's a bad game. Like it's like. She talked.
I mean, is it
croquet?
I mean, could it be an occasion where men and women would mingle because it's a sport that both can play? So in those days, where much like our dear friends riding in their gigs, together openly,
going about with in somebody else's.
You can play croquet in a mixed couple, right? Like other sports, you probably didn't. And you couldn't be like men and women together, but croquet seems to be like, because there's no like physical advantage really to being a man or a woman in croquet is a pretty level playing field. You just kind of bap the ball and you're not like you're not driving it 300 yards, right?
Yeah. I've never played croquet.
You've never played croquet? Never?
I don't think in any real sense.
Oh, the best is when the balls touch, and then.
Is that like, the
best? This is episode 69, right? No, when the croquet balls end up next to each other, because you can only hit your own ball. But if you step on your ball, you can whack it and hold your ball in position, and it sends the other ball flying. Oh, it's
actually
awesome.
Standing on your own ball?
Yeah, you just put your foot and brace your foot on your ball, and then whack it. And then the ball that it's sitting up against goes flying. It's fantastic. It's awesome.
Flexibility, stamina, strength.
No, it's just as long as you can walk, you can play croquet.
Well,
it's not like polo or anything. So we get into this trial, which apparently is lampooning the British legal system, and. We get into, the king. Oh, write that down. That's evidence. That's good. Which is from the Disney movie. So they took a lot of elements from this, which is fantastic. We bring back the Hatter and the Dormouse and the March Hare as witnesses.
And Bill.
And of course and Bill.
Bill. I was so excited to see Bill.
Like
and she
everybody's
takes his
coming
pencil,
back.
And he just writes with his finger. But it didn't work. But he kept doing it. Maybe so he didn't get beheaded. He's like, oh, I have to look busy.
Exactly. So we sort of have a wrap up. And I guess the Disney movie kind of does this, where they take the jury and it's characters from earlier in the movie. It's a lot of the birds and the dodo and whatnot, and they're all in the jury box. But anyway, so we go through, and all of this trial hinges upon a poem, which we were discussing before the pod. Lewis Carroll did not write this, but it is a sort of English verse that was known, called The Queen of Hearts. It's anonymous, and it basically is the Queen of Hearts. So the poem goes thusly. The Queen of Hearts, she made some tarts, all on a summer's day. The Knave of Hearts, he stole those tarts and took them clean away. The King of Hearts called for the tarts and beat the knave full sore. The Knave of Hearts brought back the tarts and vowed he'd steal no more. And I believe we had that in our old hardcover illustrated Mother Goose book as kids that I love. That fantastic.
They're always
edition.
beating children and people in Mother Goose rhymes.
Well, I mean, there's a moral to it, right? These rhymes are to teach a lesson. So steal stuff, you're gonna get beat. I mean, it's kind of how it works.
Reading some of these to Vince, and I just didn't want to read like old Mother Hubbard like beat her kids.
Yeah.
So I would change something like I don't remember what she does. She like throws them down the stairs, or it's like really brutal. So I would like change the words to something else. Instead of beat them, I would say love them or something ridiculously overly sensitive and compensating for the violence,
right.
Which he would be. I don't know. Sometimes we're overly sensitive about that sort of thing, but still, it didn't feel right.
Right.
So I didn't read it that way.
So we finish off the trial. We've got the queen, acting in a queenly manner, and the king trying to like, oh dear, you have to cross-examine though. You can't just execute everyone, and she wants to behead the witnesses and whatnot.
No one's actually ever executed. We learned that.
This is true. We learned the king
Griffin?
pardons them all.
Yes.
So we go through, and Alice is like, well, they don't have any evidence, so I don't know what they're going to be doing. And then they call her as a witness. And
then we have the last chapter, Alice's evidence. She doesn't expect to be called, but she
does not. And she does not. And so what evidence does she have? I mean, she doesn't know anything. So what can she present as evidence? Nothing, basically.
She's huge at the time, too, right? She's a mile high, or I'm not a mile high, you are, said the king, nearly 2 miles high, said the queen. Well, I shan't go at any rate. It's not a regular rule. You invented it just now.
Right.
So the whole trial
in the Disney version, I think she does use her remaining mushrooms to change and grow to escape. And so this is the point in the Disney movie where we hit the trial. It's Alice's trial, not the Knaves, as we mentioned. And then she sort of escapes, and there's the silent chase scene where they all come after her, and then she wakes up. And so that's the end of the movie. And in this one, we start to get angry. The queen and Alice are kind of going back and forth, and she's getting more and more frustrated. And finally, she just, in her frustration, says, "You're nothing but a pack of cards. Whatever, I don't care." And the whole pack kind of falls on her, and her sister's shaking her, and there are leaves falling on her, and she wakes up, and that's it. She's now awake, and tells her sister all about her dream, and then she says, "Run off to tea." And so that's where the Disney movie actually ends. The sister wakes her up and says, "Come along, Alice, it's time for tea," and they go. The book has, as we were talking before the pod, this wonderful little coda at the end. So why don't you want to mention what happens after she talks through her sister?
It doesn't actually end with Alice. It ends with her sister, who's thinking of Alice, and so then her sister continues to sit, and her eyes are half closed, and she's thinking of what Alice has just told her, and falling into this, I guess, a daydream, half awake, half asleep, and she's listening to all the sounds around her and equating them with the things that Alice has told her, and so she can see how Alice has dreamed this thing, and she's sitting there really lovingly thinking of Alice and how her sister would, in the time after, eventually also grow up, but unlike the older sister who's thinking this right now, she sees Alice as a grown woman. She's going to be able to keep this whimsical part of herself, and the simple, loving heart of a child will grow with Alice into adulthood, and she'll gather other children around her and be able to tell them stories, strange tales, tell her about them about the dream of Wonderland, and will help them ease their sorrows and find joy, and remembering her own childhood and happy summer days. So I don't know what that says about the sister. Perhaps she's not able to do that, but she does believe Alice is going to be able to do that, and I thought it was really lovely.
I think this is, you had mentioned earlier, this book is rather silly, and it's got fun wordplay and fun imagery for children, and it is targeted more towards children. But this last piece, I think you're right, is talking directly to the parents and cautioning them, like, hey, don't try not to lose it yourself, but if you've already lost it, at a very minimum, please don't beat that childlike wonder out of your children. Allow them to retain that into adulthood. And I think if we look in, Western media and literature and movies and things, this idea is sort of across the board. Look at, say, Ebenezer Scrooge in A Christmas Carol. Like, he's become this miserly old man who's lost the wonderment of Christmas and the joy of being a child. Look at Citizen Kane, where Charles Foster Kane is forever, his life revolves, his final words are Rosebud. Sorry for spoiling a 70-year-old, 80-year-old movie, but remembering his youth as a joyful youth riding his sled. There's probably come up with dozens of other examples of sort of that old man looking back and going, oh yeah, I used to be this joyful, happy person. Like, how did I lose that? And it's a shame I lost that, and I shouldn't have. So I think Lewis Carroll is telling adults, hey, don't take it from your child. It's a valuable thing to have.
I don't know if I want to say feel bad, but I imagine that if you're an adult who cannot even just sometimes get down with kids, and you have kids, so you're an adult who has kids,
right?
And you can't play with them, and you can't project yourself into their imaginative world, not all the time because it's difficult, but at least some of the time, I think it would be very tough to be a parent and connect with your kid, because sometimes those moments of just playing, we were talking earlier about trying not to moralize, but those moments of playing with your kids are where they're going to talk to you, where they're going to trust you, where they're going to, you're going to create these really strong bonds with them, and they still see you as the adult, but an adult who will come and play. I don't know. It would be really hard not to be able to project myself into that playful spot. I remember my childhood so vividly. I don't know if it's because I don't know why, but I will see things that Vincent does at 4.5, and I will remember being that way or thinking that way, and I will remember the thoughts that I had as a kid and understand that is where he's coming from. And I don't think everybody can do that or does do that, or at least I ask Ben sometimes, like, did you remember being like that as a kid or thinking that as a kid? And he'll be like, no, I don't. I'm like, oh man, right. I do. I remember what it felt like to be afraid and then crawl into bed with mom and dad during a thunderstorm, or be allowed to sleep in their room. Remember when we didn't have air conditioning and their bedroom was the only air conditioner? The
one in window air unit we had.
Yeah, but like that comfort of just being with them. And I remember being utterly afraid in my bed at night alone sometimes. And so when Vince will come into our room to sleep, like, I get it. People are like, you should take him back, blah, 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 learn to sleep on his own. I'm like, he will. He's not going to be crawling into our bed when he's 16. No. I am not afraid that he will never learn to sleep on his own.
Right.
But I feel like I still have like a very visceral memory of being terrified. Oddly enough, I don't know if you know this, I was afraid there were lobsters under my bed. Do you know that?
I did not know that.
My fear was that
lobsters.
It's
a very specific fear.
That lobsters were all over my floor, and so
you didn't even come to Maine with us growing up.
I would have to jump from the edge of my bed and like lean on the dresser, open the door, and then jump out into the hallway because of the lobsters. And then mom and dad thought it would be a good idea to buy a book called There's a Crocodile Under My Bed.
Well, it's different than lobsters.
Lobsters weren't bad enough.
Yeah. Just yesterday, as a matter of fact, we were getting the kids ready for bed, and, Simon being Simon is bouncing around doing whatever. And, there's two ways to kind of go about it, right? We wanted him to go up and brush his teeth and get ready for bed. And you can yell at your kid. You can say, hey, you need to go brush your teeth right now. And you can get angry with him. But he was kind of playing. And so we just talked over the walkie-talkie to each other. And just, hey, you gotta brush teeth now, and I pretended to be a dispatcher sending my clone trooper up to brush his teeth, and he ran up and did it and came back, and Susan was just looking at me going, I can't do that. Like, how did you do that just so easily with him? You just incorporated yourself into his little game and got him to do what we wanted him to do. I just said, I don't know. I'm an idiot 12-year-old still, so I can play a game with him. And it works, So people, play with your kids. Like, let your kid be a kid. And, yes, they have to listen to you. Yes, they have to do things. Yes, sometimes it's time sensitive and you can't. But if you build up the trust with them that sometimes you're like, hey, sometimes you just got to listen. But you don't have to be an ogre constantly. Like, have fun. Let the kid be a kid. Anyway, that's the moral of today's episode.
Thank you, Duchess Kyle.
Yes. All right, so we have anything else you want to wrap up on these last couple of chapters?
No, I'm excited to read Through the Looking Glass.
Right. So
having a memory of it that may not be accurate.
Right. So programming note, normally after we finish a book, we go into a wrap episode, but because we're taking these two as a single work, basically, because they're so short, the next episode in your feed will be the first half. And again, it's about the same length as Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, so it'll be broken into 2 episodes over 2 weeks. So we'll read the first half of Through the Looking Glass and what Alice found there. And then once we have finished 2 weeks of that, then we'll do a wrap of both books kind of together, discussing them as a sort of contiguous whole. So our time in the Alice cinematic universe will come to a close at that point.
Hopefully it won't be 6 weeks between episodes.
Hopefully it will not be 6 weeks. So those of you who have been waiting with bated breath for this episode to come out, I thank you for your patience. But we should be back onto sort of regular schedule at this point. And so you can make sure you rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Tell your friends about us, because that's how, rating gets us up there on the charts and people can find the podcast easier. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and the Facebook. We are at CYST Pod on all of those. You can email us at gmail.com. It's cystpod@gmail.com is the address. And keep reading. Enjoy these books. So until next time, no silly one this week because it is Memorial Day weekend when we are recording this. So I'm not overly worshipful of the military. Just, I was in it for 20 years, so I think I can I don't get into, quite the over-exuberance and deification of soldiers. Soldiers are people, just like any other profession. We have good ones and bad ones, but it is a hard job, and you do lose a lot of friends over the years. And so, I'm not Fox News, so please enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. It is a long weekend. It is time off for a lot of people that, you don't get a lot of time. So have fun with your family, enjoy your family. But just on Monday, obviously you're probably listening to this after Monday, but so if you didn't, you can go back. It doesn't have to be on Memorial Day, but just, take 5 minutes out and think about the sacrifices that the military does make, whether you agree with the politics of what the military does or not. And trust me, I was in it for 20 years. I don't agree with everything the military was asked to do, but it is a important institution in society, and it does provide an important function that is necessary. And so, as a former military member, we strive to do it as honorably and humanely and justly as humanly possible, which is why it's important for you to engage civically. In America, we have civilian control of the military, so that's why it's important that you elect the right leaders. So if you don't like what the military does, it's not the military's fault. Elect people who will use the military in a manner that you agree with, is what I say. But it is a hard job. It is a dangerous job. And as time goes on, fewer and fewer numbers of Americans know people in the military or have relationships with people in the military. The military as a total population is less than 0.5% of our country has served in the military, so fewer and fewer people know someone who was in the military. So just take 5 minutes, and if you know someone in the military or you have a military member in your family, just think about the sacrifices that they went through. I always remind people Memorial Day is to remember those who have passed on. So personally, I dislike it when people thank me for my service on Memorial Day. Memorial Day is not for me. I get Veterans Day in November. You can thank me then. But Memorial Day is to remember the friends we've lost, and so I take 5 minutes out on Monday, and I think about a couple of guys that I knew who are no longer with us. So happy Memorial Day, everyone.
Well said. Peace.
All right. Later.